Does it need to be mock draft Monday to do another mock draft? Giants still suck on Wednesdays, so we got another mock draft going on for you today. Draft order based on current Super Bowl odds. As we get deeper into the year, I'm just going to do it based off of record, but for now, it's October 2nd as I record this, so it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to do it based off record when some of these teams could just have a great run of games and opponents for, 3 or 4 games, and the opposite for other teams. So it's currently based off Super Bowl odds, and let's kick it off with the Panthers. I'm honestly going to go Travis Hunter, right? This quarterback class is bad, and in a mock draft where I'm not doing trades, it'd be pretty convoluted this early in the year. I think it might just make sense to stick and pick and take the best player. Like, I did Carson Beck in the last mock draft for the Panthers just because they had recently benched Bryce Young. It's an interesting storyline to consider, and that's what mock drafts are, considering different scenarios. And how about a scenario where they add maybe the best player in the college football and in the draft as a whole? He is an elite corner. He's a really, really talented receiver. Who knows what exactly he's going to do in the NFL? I think he should take the Deion Sanders route. Shocking with him being at Colorado, but play corner mostly because he's a freak, but also come in for the occasional set of offensive reps and just be a big-time ball winner, speed guy down the field as a receiver. He's a tremendous player. The Panthers really could use some more of those. So how about a big-time corner that can also return some kicks and punts for you, play some wide receiver for you? Travis Hunter's playing over 120 snaps a game right now. For perspective, it would be typical for a corner or a receiver to play maybe 60 or 70 snaps a game, and he's nearly doubling that. So he's not on the field for every snap, but he's playing more snaps than every single player in college football, and it's not even close. He is a freak, and the Panthers could use a really talented player. Travis Hunter is obviously a really talented player. At number 2, this video is sponsored by Underdog. We were able to cash with DK Metcalf, Geno Smith, and Jahmyr Gibbs on Monday Night Football. So I've made a couple as we prepare for Thursday Night Football and this week of college football games. For Thursday Night Football, with code BENGAL on Underdog, going with Baker Mayfield, higher 1.5 passing touchdowns. I hate to do this, but Bijan Robinson lower 94.5 rushing and receiving yards. It just seems too high with him being limited at practice. I think Tyler Algier could get more of a bulk role. For that reason, I'm banking on Bijan not being 100%, Tyler Algier to get higher than 32.5 rushing yards, and Kirk Cousins to go lower than 226.5 passing yards. The Bucs pass defense is just pretty good, and Kirk really hasn't been very much over this number. He has been over it, but against New Orleans, KC, and Philly, who have been some of the worst pass defenses in football this year, I just think the numbers are just a little bit too high. And for college football, I'm going with a very similar type idea. Dylan Gabriel lower 290.5. He really hasn't been very high over this number when he has been. 291 against Oregon State. He's facing Michigan State, who's been fairly good against opposing quarterbacks. I just think if Dylan Gabriel's throwing the ball 41 times against UCLA and can't even get it, and then only throwing it 21 and 24 times, either barely going over or being significantly under, I think against Michigan State, he might very well be under 290.5. And then outside of that, I also have Kyle McCord, higher passing yards at 304.5. He's been crushing this. The UNLV run defense has been pretty good against whoever they're playing. But McCord's been smashing this number mostly, so I think it's just a little bit too low. Omarion Hampton's one of the best running backs in college football. The Pitt run defense isn't anything spectacular. I think Omarion Hampton can get at least 107 rushing yards. Brady Cook against Texas A&M, I think 223.5 is a feasible number. I almost correlated this with Theo Weiss or Luther Burden, but ended up just taking Brady Cook by himself. Kalel Mullings is RB1 in Michigan now. And against Washington, not a very amazing run defense. I like Kalel Mullings to get 102 rushing yards or more. And then we talked about Dylan Gabriel. But use code BENGAL on Underdog. You can get some pretty awesome rewards playing the Pick'em. Of course, use code BENGAL. Play responsibly. And if you like some special picks, stay on the lookout for those. They've got new ones coming out every single day with code BENGAL on Underdog. Link is in the description, and hopefully we can win some money. I am getting a little bit interesting here, and I am going to be selecting Cam Williams. He plays tackle, of course, at Texas. Now, unfortunately, he is not in the Pro Football Focus database at the moment, and that's how I'm doing this mock draft. So gets me in a little bit of a conundrum. How about just take the other tackle, right, from Texas? Well, Kelvin Banks Jr. I also think could be a first-round pick. So this number 2 overall selection is going to be Cam Williams. Unfortunately, with Pro Football Focus, I can't really have that get displayed at the moment, so it puts me in a little bit of a difficult position. So this is Texas right tackle Cam Williams. He is another freak, really, really big-time athlete. I'm just going to put in Cam Scatabo here from Arizona State. This makes it so you have to be paying attention, I guess. But Cameron Williams from Texas, big-time right tackle, 335, 340 pounds, larger than life. It's his first year starting. He's got the size, he's got the athleticism, and he is shutting down the opposition. Really talented young player, and I think based off of how the NFL draft works, it's traits, which factors in obviously with athleticism, size, frame, all these different things. That's what gets pushed up the board. That's why a Trayvon Walker goes number 1 overall over Aiden Hutchinson. Now, do the Jaguars wish they could go back and make a different pick at this time? Right now, absolutely, I'm sure that they would. But sometimes you take these guys that really have super high upsides, and they reach those upsides, and now you have one of the best players in the league. So that type of thing can happen. Cam Williams from Texas, the right tackle, could also be athletic enough to move to left tackle, by the way. To the Panthers at 2 that really need to upgrade their offensive line. Giants at 3. I'm going to go Shedeur Sanders. This is a tough one because this quarterback class is just not very good. Like, Cam Ward has upside, but the decision-making is still not very good. Jalen Milroe has upside because he's a great athlete with a great deep ball, or really solid deep ball for a prospect. Doesn't really throw over the middle of the field at all. This is a problem. Garrett Nussmeier has made some big-time throws. Overall, is he a first-round guy? Carson Beck, really losing a lot of steam right now. The receiving core at Georgia is really bad, but he's not elevating those guys. Quinn Ewers, I love Quinn. I'm a big Texas fan, of course. However, Quinn Ewers cannot stay healthy. He really cannot stay healthy, and that's a big-time problem for a quarterback going high in the draft. I know Michael Penix was a top 10 pick with some injury stuff, but Quinn's been injured also every single year, and he still doesn't really have a very good deep ball, and that is a problem. Drew Aller's got a big-time arm potential. There's a lot of guys we can point to and say they have potential. This quarterback class is just not very amazing at the moment, and we'll see what happens as the year progresses. But Shedeur Sanders is probably the best one, or certainly is. He's so accurate. The offensive line there is not very good at Colorado at all, and he does a pretty good job of elevating that offense. Now, he does run into some sacks. Some of those sacks are not only on the O-line. Some of them are his fault. And I would also say I hate to be super old school on you guys, but I don't like a lot of what he's saying. And I feel like he doesn't really seem to be too much of a leader, and I think a lot of those things are factored in at the quarterback position more than anything else, and I would worry about him with the New York media. But as far as being the best quarterback in the draft, it is probably Shedeur Sanders right now. At number 4, I have the Denver Broncos. Had him last week going with T-Mac. I'm going to do it again. I just think they need to really revitalize that receiver room. Tedero McMillan can help you do that. He's got really, really good size, great ability to go up and get the football. He's good after the catch. He's a really talented player and maybe the best receiver prospect in this draft. Titans at number 5. It's still going to be offensive line for me. And I think there's a perfect fit, and I think it's Emory Jones from LSU, and I may have done this last time as well. I think he's a plug-and-play starting right tackle that can make it so you can leave J.C. Latham at left tackle, who's starting to play really well. Emory Jones is a really, really good athlete. It's the same reason why we have Cameron Williams from Texas going so high in the draft. Size, athleticism, plus good tape. Cam Williams has a smaller sample size than Emory Jones, who was awesome last year. He is maybe not off to as good of a start this year. I still totally wouldn't mind taking Will Campbell or Kelvin Banks as either of the first 2 tackles off the board, but we do take a Texas tackle, we do take an LSU tackle, just not Will Campbell or Kelvin Banks Jr., and this could end up not being correct, but that's why we do mock drafts. It's kind of a fun exercise. It's a possibility. These guys, Emory Jones, Cam Williams, bigger and more athletic with a better chance to take a tackle than Will Campbell and Kelvin Banks. So we'll see how that ends up going as time goes on. But for right now, when you're talking about traits, overall frame, and movement skills, which, factors into traits, these two, Cam Williams and Emory Jones from Texas and LSU, are, maybe upside-wise better than Will Campbell and Kelvin Banks Jr., even though Campbell and Banks are more solid right now. I wouldn't debate that. I would not. But the draft is not who is solid right now. It's, okay, we get you if we're picking you in the first round for 4 or 5 years with the fifth-year option. Who's going to be better for year, 2, 3, 4, 5, potentially, rather than just year 1. So this is how the NFL draft works a lot of the time. Raiders at number 6. This one's tough for me. I ended up selecting Cam Ward from Miami. Cam Ward is another one of these guys that has potential. We talked about him briefly. His decision-making is really not good. His ball security is really not good. He's fumbled more than anyone I've ever seen. He turns over the football through the air as well. And yes, he can do some really special things. But playing quarterback in the NFL is more about consistency than about the special plays. And you do like to see somebody that can do these special things. And maybe that's why Cam Ward ends up going in the top 10. The transfer, of course, from Incarnate Word, and then to Washington State, now Miami. Still a lot of the same problems that you saw at Wazoo are showing up at Miami. So hopefully you can iron those things out as this year progresses. I really would love to see some development in the year that shows Cam Ward really taking strides, and there's a lot of football left to be played. But for right now, he's raw, but there is potential, and the Raiders could really use a quarterback. So he ends up shooting up the draft boards here. At number 7, Jags. Got them going with Will Johnson. He's just, for me, maybe the best player in the draft. He is as solid as they come. This is the modern NFL prototype corner. 6'2", 200 pounds, great length, great athleticism, great ball skills, great instincts. He's a special player, in my opinion. And the Jags could use more of those, and especially at corner, instant starting boundary, field corner. He's a really, really fun player. And I think combining him with a healthy Tyson Campbell long-term would be really awesome. And I know Tyson Campbell, health was up and down over the past couple years, but really, really good player as well. Now you get maybe one of the best young cornerback tandems in the league. You go with Will Johnson at 7. At number 8, the Miami Dolphins are really, really struggling right now. And I look at them and I say, you know what? They need to be better in the trenches, really on both sides of the ball. But when a player like Mason Graham from Michigan is available at number 8, I think you pull the trigger. Another, I would say, special player on that Michigan defense. He's got explosiveness. He can play against the run. He is a very good pass rusher. He is a really, really fun player. And this is your long-term Christian Wilkins replacement. Of course, you lose him to the Raiders in free agency. And the Cardinals will go back-to-back with defensive linemen. I'm going with Deion Walker from Kentucky. Another guy with freakish size, but as I've talked about before, he's not like a nose tackle at 6'6", 345. This is probably someone that's going to play 3-tech. He's got rare pass rush ability for somebody of that size, and he's a finesse rusher. It's kind of insane to be that size, but to be as quick as he is. Honestly, I would like to see him use that strength a little bit more because he is 345 pounds, but at 6'6" in the trenches, it's a leverage game. It can be a little bit tough to, stand your ground at 6'6", even if he is 345 pounds. At number 10, you can see the Rams going quarterback here, depending on who's available. But again, I'm just really not stoked on this QB class right now. Jalen Milroe, I think, could play himself into the Heisman. That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be a first-round pick, although he could be. We need to see more. If you wanted to have Jalen Milroe go in the first round, I wouldn't call you crazy right now, but we need to see more of it. I don't really feel comfortable doing that at this point. Rams at number 10. I'm going Kelvin Banks Jr. Just try to really build up that offensive line. And I think Kelvin Banks Jr. could be a starter at tackle or even guard. So Kelvin Banks Jr., top 10 pick here out of Texas. Hook 'em horns. I'm trying to get as many as I can off the board, obviously. Cam Williams at 2. Kelvin Banks at 10. No Quinn Ewers, though, yet. Maybe that will change in the near future, or maybe it won't. At number 11, have the Chargers going with Luther Burden from Mizzou. Burden, for me, I would like to see a little bit more production. Some games, it seems like he disappears at Mizzou, and I don't know that that's necessarily a him problem. It just happens. He's maybe going to be a slot receiver at the next level. The Chargers, I know typically you wouldn't expect, oh, go wide receiver early. Just took Ladd McConkey last year. Quentin Johnston's maybe taking a step up. We think Jim Harbaugh. We think power run. But Luther Burden Jr., or the third, excuse me, is a really talented player. Can eat in the slot, big-time speed, great after the catch, and I think is worthy of being a first-round pick comfortably. It's only a matter of where he's going to go. The Chargers need receiver. I end up taking Burden at 11. Browns at 12. I'm going with Will Campbell. Again, if he falls in the draft, I think you scoop him up. Tackle could be quite a need for the Browns when you factor in that Jedrick Wills' contract is expiring. Conklin's been someone that's been injured quite a lot over the past couple of years. So can never really be too good up front on either side of the ball, really. Bears at 13. I know I did it last week. I'm going to do it again. I'm going Jonas Savaiinaea out of Arizona. He's probably going to be an NFL guard. So this is a pick at guard. People don't listen and they say, oh, we don't need a corner. I'm like, well, Jahdae Barron's not necessarily only a corner. Dating back to the last mock draft, he's played safety. He's been one of the best slot corners in football. He's now playing some boundary corner. Just because their position is listed a certain way on Pro Football Focus doesn't mean that's what position they play or would be drafted to play, just so we all know. Colts at 14, going with a corner in Benjamin Morrison from Notre Dame. Another one of these prototype corners, 6 foot, 190. It's like the modern NFL corners, 6 foot plus, and he's got some really great ability, was phenomenal last year, and you get to keep him in Indianapolis. Kind of a fun storyline there for me. Steelers at 15. I think it should be a receiver, right? But they don't do that typically, so it's not going to be in this instance. I'm going to go Malachi Starks. I just think that you don't necessarily have safety locked up long-term. Of course, Minkah Fitzpatrick, but Deshaun Elliott, hook him, not going to be there necessarily long-term. And, I think you brought back Terrell Edmonds because safety's been kind of a little wishy-washy. Malachi Starks, in my opinion, is just one of the best players in the draft. I think if you had him at safety or at slot corner, you're getting a really good player. Another guy with good size, great ball skills, great athleticism, and I think you just get better in the back end. And when you're playing against teams like the Bengals that love to air it out, with T. Higgins and, Jamar Chase, obviously, and they drafted Jermaine Burton, and now maybe you're going to be worried about Yoshivas long-term. You need DBs that can cover those guys. I know that's just one team, but, the Ravens are more power run right now. Either way, you got to play more teams than just in your division. And the Browns, too, if Deshaun Watson can figure it out consistently, they've got some weapons at receiver in Amari Cooper, and you bring in Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Moore maybe at some point could be something. Malachi Starks could be the David Njoku eraser. Either way, good player, like really great player, and he's available at 15. You pull the trigger. Commanders at 16. No edge rushers off the board. I'm going to change that. I'm going to go Abdul Carter from Penn State. He's been a linebacker that's really transitioning into a full-time edge rusher this year. He's got phenomenal athleticism and very good size as well at 6'3", 260. And I think that you look at the Commanders, edge is one of the biggest needs for them right now. So is tackle. They've got almost no depth at tackle, and their top-end talent there really isn't great either. The problem, though, is that this tackle class isn't necessarily spectacular. So when no edge rushers are off the board to this point, maybe you take the first one, and that could be Abdul Carter. It could be not Malachi Starks. It could be Mykel Williams is who I was trying to say. Could be James Pierce even. Could be Nick Scorton. So there are definitely some different guys in play to be that first edge rusher off the board. It wouldn't shock me if it was in the top 5. Here, it's at 16. So kind of a long fall. I'm sure that won't happen on draft night, but it happens today. Saints desperately need to upgrade their offensive line. I'm going Ariante Ursary from Minnesota, potentially a guard as well in the NFL, but the idea here is that he'd be playing tackle, but guard certainly could be a need for the Saints as well. At 18, have the Bucks going James Pierce. I don't know when this run of edge rushers is going to be. I like James Pierce a lot. This is another guy that I could see being, one of the first few players off the board. Hasn't been ultra productive this year. They didn't really play anyone on the schedule. I think as you get into the SEC conference games, James Pierce might be playing more snaps and playing more of an impact. Hopefully that ends up happening if you're a James Pierce or Tennessee fan. I really liked him as a player last year. Big time burst off the line. And he's like the perfect 3-4 outside linebacker, I would say. But is this a guy that could bulk up and play, a 4-3 edge? Maybe it is. Maybe it is. And maybe he could even swing it at 250. That's a possibility. But I think when you look at the Bucs, he's a really, really nice plug-and-play type player. Seahawks at 19. This was a tough one for me because I look at Seattle and I go, this is a really, really good team. It's tough to find, needs for them that match up with this draft class where they're currently, projected to be picking. And I ended up settling on Kenneth Grant from Michigan. Just a solid interior defensive lineman. Get some aging / whatever guys in that group right now. Their defense overall is phenomenal. But you know what? You got the Michigan connection to Mike McDonald. Although, I don't think Kenneth Grant was there when Mike McDonald was there. Either way, McDonald's going to know everything about this guy. If it's a good fit, could be a pick there at number 19. At number 20, Cincinnati Bengals. I'm going with, again, one of the best players in college football. Got Ashton Jeanty from Boise State. Contact balance for days. He's got decent enough speed. He is a broken tackle machine. If you want to just have fun watching football, throw on Boise State, Mountain West After Dark, and watch Ashton Jeanty go to town. He is an animal. And I know what you're thinking. Dude, he plays at Boise State. It's not a power conference. He's doing this against UNLV or Nevada or Utah State. He torched Oregon, who is considered to be one of the best defenses in the nation under Dan Lanning. He's a player. He's going to be a first-round pick, I believe. And I am for taking a running back in the first round. You get them for their prime. You get the fifth-year option. It's a more run-heavy league than it's ever been in the past decade plus. Now that teams are running so much too high, protecting the deep ball. You got to be able to run the football. Yes, that starts up front, but the Bengals don't seem like the same team without Joe Mixon, who maybe I was underrating in Cincinnati. Ashton Jeanty, yes, it's a running back. Running backs, if they are talented enough, are worth first-round picks. Do we want to talk about extending those players, giving them a second contract? No, not necessarily, right? But if you can get them for their first 4 years in the league, their prime, plus a fifth-year option if it's going well, you can have them if they're a 22-year-old rookie. You get that age, which is not unusual. That's about what they would be. Sometimes they can be 20 or 21. Jeanty, I think, might be only 20 right now. Probably 21 as a rookie. But 22, let's say on average. 22, 3, 4, 5, and then get them for their fifth-year option is 26 years old. You're thinking about the decline of a running back typically around that 27, 28 years old mark. Why not take them in the first round? I know it's because you can get 80% of their production with a third-round pick sometimes. You can't always do that. People think it's too easy. It doesn't always happen. It can happen. It can happen with a number of different positions. And why settle for 80% of something when you can get 100% of a really, really good player? I like Jeanty in the first round here to Cincinnati. Packers end up going with, I'm going Savone Revel from East Carolina. Yes, Savone. My brain wants to say Siobhan so bad, but Savone Revel unfortunately tore his ACL, but the talent is still incredible. I think it's a really good fit with Green Bay. He's got incredible size at 6'3", 195, and great ball skills, great closing speed. He is size and athleticism, and he's getting better in coverage. Maybe not too much of a tackler, but great in coverage to go with everything else. I think he still could end up being a first-round pick, even after the injury. Falcons at 22. I'm going to go with Mykel Williams, still available. This could be a player that ends up going a lot higher. Think Trayvon Walker, the size, the traits, length, speed, quickness, everything is crazy with him. Versatile like Trayvon Walker was. Injuries have been a bit of a thing so far for him in 2024. However, he's playing through some of them, and he's still producing pretty well. And I would say that keeping him in state, kind of fun. Jets at 23. I'm going to go Isaiah Bond. This could be a quarterback potentially. This could be where I would get Quinn Ewers or Carson Beck or Jalen Milroe, even Garrett Nussmeier off the board, right? But I'm going Isaiah Bond. Aaron Rodgers could still be playing next season, which is a big if. Maybe that's why you go quarterback at this pick. But Bond gives you incredible speed to add to this offense. And as I've said a billion times on this channel, I'm sure you guys are getting sick of it, but speed isn't just about, bringing in somebody for a deep ball. It's about spacing the field and letting everything open up in the intermediate areas. Now, I know Rodgers historically has not been this target middle of the field guy. He's been someone that crushes it on the outside. That doesn't mean he can't throw, inside the seams, but I think Bond, as all these big-time speed receivers do, they space everything out, have those corners take a couple steps back, safeties take a couple steps back. They're really worried about the speed, and then that opens up a huge window for an elite quarterback to throw, over those linebackers or just wherever they need to go with the football. Speed creates problems for opposing defenses, even if the receiver is not going to be the recipient. Sometimes it's the speed receiver, as hopefully you guys understand that. 24, I have the Dallas Cowboys going with Dante Corleone. Is this like a guaranteed first rounder for me? It might feel better about Tyleik Williams, but I want to show some love to Dante Corleone. I know he's only like 6'1", but he's 320-ish pounds. He's been a pretty good player for Cincinnati over the years. And I would say that you look at the Cowboys, you look at a team that really, really struggles to defend any type of a run. They were decent against the Giants on Thursday night, but overall they've been the worst team in the league against the run this year. And I would say that that's a position that you could continue to invest in. I know they're pretty disappointed that, Mozzie Smith hasn't been that guy yet for them, or all the litany, really, of interior defensive linemen they've taken with second or third round picks in the last 4 or 5 years. None of them really seem to be working out. So you keep taking swings because it's still an issue. I know sometimes you get to these fan bases, like if we take another offensive lineman, it used to be for the Giants. I'm like, well, no, but you still need to because the offensive line's so bad. If we take another defensive lineman, I'm going to freak out. I want only skill players. Skill players are great. The trenches are what wins ball games. With the defensive line, an incredible pass rush is really, really tough to deal with for an opposing offense. And also, if you can really stop the run and force teams into passing downs, that's also really tough. And a great offensive line gives a quarterback so much time to make a decision and even run the ball. So the games are won and lost in the trenches, in my opinion, and you got to keep taking swings there if you're going to get better as a team. Vikings, I'm going Jahdae Barron. I talked about him briefly. Where's he listed here? He's listed at corner. He's someone that's played slot corner. He's someone that can play safety. So in my mind, you would play probably Byron Murphy on the outside and then Jahdae Barron in the nickel or at safety. And then when Harrison Smith's day has finally come, Jahdae Barron can move back to safety. Really, really good player. Is he going to be a first-round pick? Hook 'em horns. Eagles at number 26. I'm going to go Nick Scorton from Texas A&M, the Purdue transfer. He's got great size. Was really productive last season at Purdue. And it's the Eagles, dude. I mean, they're going to take an edge rusher probably. I could also see them going with Jalen Walker. I don't know if he's listed at edge or linebacker here. At linebacker. Build that Georgia theme team that the Eagles have going on. Really, really fun player. I think maybe a better fit for a different team. Unless, I guess you could play him off ball and then as like a rush linebacker on occasion if you're going to send 5. But Scorton here, I think a better fit for Philadelphia. I know it's like we keep taking edge rushers. We even signed one, right? I get that. But they love a rotation. They're constantly investing in the position. Nick Scorton's available at 26. Texans at 27. I'm going to keep feeding the running back trend here. I'm going to Marion Hampton from UNC. I love Marion Hampton. I think even with Joe Mixon, who's been banged up this year, the Texans are really searching for a big-time running back. I thought for a minute it was going to be Dameon Pierce. Doesn't really seem to be. He was not very good last year. I don't think he's necessarily that guy. But you look at Marion Hampton, 6'1", 220, bell cow size. I thought he might even be a little bit bigger than 220. He's a load of a running back. Really, really great contact balance as well. UNC, man, they're like casually RBU over the past several years with Javonte Williams, Marion Hampton, Michael Carter. They've had a few here recently. Lions at 28, going Jack Sawyer. I just think they're still searching for that running mate alongside Aiden Hutchinson. are on the other side. They just really haven't had that big-time edge rusher. You have another injury. They seem to be piling up. Like James Houston was really only going to be more of a rotational guy anyway. They don't really have that true 3-down player. I think Jack Sawyer certainly is. Bills at 29. Going with Jalen Walker. We talked about him a little bit. I know he's listed at linebacker. I don't know why I clicked edge. Can be kind of a hybrid player, but I think linebacker is a little bit of a need for the Bills. Jalen Walker is a really great athlete, 6'2", 245, can really come down and hit. And also, juice off the edge. That's a fun kind of combination to have there. Some flexibility, some versatility for Buffalo. Ravens at 30. I am going with Kevin Winston Jr. from Penn State, another really, really good player. I know I have a thing for safeties. I love safeties. I just think that, you know what? A lot of times you only notice those guys when they're making a mistake. In the back end, it's easy to criticize. But when these guys can come up and defend the run, when these guys can take away the football, huge play in the game just because they're in the right place at the right time because they have the feel, you know, those are game-changing type plays. And, you know, safeties don't really get enough love. And this is a pretty good safety class at the top. Kevin Winston Jr. could go even higher than this as a safety. And I look with Baltimore, it's just contract situations, really. I think he would give them a good combination with Kyle Hamilton over the back. And we know the Ravens like to move him around anyway. Kevin Winston Jr. is just solid value here at 30. 49ers, going to go with a corner in Denzel Burke from Ohio State. I know I've given love to Takario Davis before, but I think Denzel Burke could be someone that gets into the first round, so might as well show him some love. And you look at corner for the 49ers, it's not necessarily solidified long-term. I do like Charvarius Ward quite a bit, but outside of him, I think you could certainly look to upgrade long-term, and Burke's going to be my guy. And then at 32, I have the Chiefs. What do you give to the Chiefs? They're one of the best teams in football, as always. I'm going to go Colston Loveland from Michigan. He's such a talented player. And this tight end class is actually pretty good. Of course, I got my guy, Gunnar Helm from Texas, but also Harold Fannin Jr. from Bowling Green. I think could end up being someone taken in the, maybe first round, but probably day 2 range. He's putting up gaudy numbers at Bowling Green. Look into it. That is the mock draft on Mock Draft Wednesday. Remember, this is not Cam Scatterbo going at number 2. This is Cameron Williams from Texas. There are a number of other players that aren't in the PFF database right now that I would like to get into the database so I can draft them. You look at that Alabama defense, there are a few that stand out. Jahad Campbell maybe being the number 1 linebacker out of Alabama. Could be the number 1 linebacker in this class. Not even in the system as far as I can tell. So thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.